Hello, this is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Ilhan Omar is booted from the Foreign Affairs Committee, which the Democrats are very upset about it, crying racism, sexism, Islamophobe, all sorts of different things that they're, getting at. But the Republicans are very clear, like she's an anti-Semite. She said some terrible things and we're booting her. And you guys set the precedent when you were booting our folks, particularly Marjorie Taylor Greene, who said some wild things and has worked with McCarthy and their folks to kind of work her way back up and redeem herself in a way to gain like political power. And then it doesn't erase some of the wackier things that she might have said in the past, but she got reelected, so and so did Omar, but she can be on another committee, but they don't want her on this one. So people are like, oh, this is for revenge, and it's like, yeah, revenge for what? The Democrats did the same thing, and they warned, like, you guys do this, it's gonna be tit for tat, and now the tat is happening, so they're upset about that. Also, Hunter Biden is making some interesting moves as he's going on offense with his laptop and going after folks who disseminated the information. And I was just telling my sister about this, and she's like, oh, so because they couldn't like really do that before, huh? Because they didn't have to admit that it was his. And I'm like, no, he's still denying that it's his, or playing games like it's not his. And she's like, what? So pretty wild stuff going on that front. Also, there's been some chatter because Sarah Michelle Gellar, who played Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she has a new show that's out, so she's, I guess, been going around promoting it. She did an article with The Guardian and mentioned something about Marvel films and how the audience is more prone to be for male superheroes, or they're not giving female superheroes a chance, and she thought that was wrong. And how people were talking about it, I really thought it was kind of going to be a bigger statement than when I actually got to what she said in the article. But anyway, that's just not true, regardless about people picking sides or being sexist. And like, there's just been some female-led stuff that just hasn't been solid. So I just want to go through that. But before we jump into everything, I'm going to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos that I have. Please check out different merch that I have, like the My Money, My Business shirt. Really like that one. I got all this Club XX lifetime membership. You should be able to decipher what that means. Got Black Tea mug. And also you can get other cool, merch. It is Black History Month, Also, I do write books, and so I said I'd be promoting this one a lot because it is a historical fiction fantasy that takes place in the Civil War. So imagine like X-Men meets Civil War. So like the American Civil War, not Marvel Civil War. But yeah, so you can get that on Amazon and paperback, on ebook, or if you have Kindle Unlimited, you guys can go ahead and pick up The Color of God's Eyes and Song of the Devil's Lips. I have many books that I have written. Just search my name on Amazon. I'm going to show you really quickly the picture of me with all my babies. There's me with all my babies. Besides the new one that's yet to come out yet. The, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion book. So you guys can pre-order that on Kindle. If you're waiting for paperback, you got to wait a little bit longer. But I'm very excited about that one. I'm sure it'll help a lot of people, be able to make some better arguments. And and also debunk just a lot of dumb stuff. I'm so sick of having to debunk all the dumb stuff. So I put in a book for you. I put in a book. I got some in different articles, but I do have it in some books. But I also want to thank still the my gold sponsors who helped me go to the March for Life. Me and my sister went. Not this last Friday, but the Friday before, we went down to DC for the march, and so we got some great footage. So I've been talking about it and just sprinkling it out a bit. So the Right to Life Plymouth was one of my gold sponsors, and so was Michigan Conservative Coalition, and also Brighter Michigan PAC. So I'm very thankful to them, and also I had silver sponsors and bronze sponsors, but my silver sponsors are there at the bottom. Some good friends of mine were willing to support. So my goal of going there was to get people's experiences and their life stories and why they're pro-life, and to like one young woman who I interviewed, when she was young, she had a sibling who died just right out the womb, and just even that small amount of time and her family preparing for that very brief the end of their very brief life helped them to understand how valuable, even if it's short, how valuable life is. So that was a very touching story. I told you guys already that I met two women who were at like the first March for Life, and so they're like, well, the ruling was so bad, they just figured they'd march for 5 years and then it would be overturned, and it took like 50 years. So um, they kept at it. A lot of people from Michigan are very upset about the election outcome. I mean, I'm upset. I didn't like the outcome, obviously, but I know that we have to press on and keep fighting forward. So that's what I decided to do. And I wanted to keep fighting the good fight. And there's some people who are willing to fight in the good fight as well. A video that I posted today on YouTube, Emily from the Equal Rights Institute, which their institute, they train people who are pro-life to make better arguments. So and be less weird, as Emily puts it. She's like, I think she's their comms director, but I've had Emily on the show before. So if you want to go back and find Emily from Equal Rights Institute, I've had her on before, but I did post her interview today. And so it's just a few minutes long, and she talked about what we need to do moving forward, and how the left, they really did have a lot of a lot of propaganda that was very effective that was out. So in having Roe v. Wade overturned was just the starting point. And if you are pro-life and you really want to see a difference, you have to keep fighting, but you also have to know how to get your message out there and to tell stories effectively. So that's what we need to focus on moving forward. I compare abortion a lot with the slave trade, because I do see them as human rights violations, and people use such eerie how it's so eerie how people use similar arguments. But even people in the North were very complacent with the situation, and it took things like Uncle Tom's Cabin, for example, which is so interesting and infuriating, stupid, how people will call you, like someone like me, and Uncle Tom, which I've been called an Uncle Tom before, as an insult. When the book Uncle Tom's Cabin did, if someone uses that phrase, I'm going to assume that they have nothing on their roster that has helped Black people as much as that particular book did, because they ended up adapting it to stage play, but people reading it and people seeing it in theater, which P.T. Barnum and in his theaters, people will go see it. It opened up people's eyes to the plight of the slave, where they were kind of disconnected from it. So that helped to change a lot of hearts and minds. So sometimes you have to keep working on that, breaking up that fallow ground. And that's what we have to continue to do. So the folks on, the pro-abortion activists, they've been really, changing definitions, editing Planned Parenthood's website, all kind of different stuff, for like ectopic pregnancies on their website, used to say an abortion is an ectopic pregnancy, and all of a sudden you see like Christian influencer, something Emmanuel Aiko on YouTube, who had a woman on talking about Roe v. Wade and how it's, you know, affecting women being overturned. And one of the women had an ectopic pregnancy in the Michigan House. He had one of our legislators who talked about her ectopic pregnancy. I know people who've had ectopic pregnancies and they think it's sick that you'd make that comparison, because that's not something that you can help. But Planned Parenthood used to say it's not the same thing, but so many people wanted to use that as a sympathetic talking point to, you know, keep abortion, you know, legal everywhere, that they went and they tweaked their website. They tweaked their website. You know, Google, if you would Google the word fetus, human baby would be right in there. I screenshot it, so I still got the screenshot. As a matter of yeah, I got it right here. So this used to be the screenshot. Last time I looked it up, it said something different, but I have the screenshot. Maybe they changed it back, but they go back and they like stealth edit stuff to you know, to change people's hearts and minds. Even like people get offended if you use the word child or use the word baby, and they know and admit. Michael Knowles had a video with a med student who admitted that she is being taught to only use the word baby if the woman wants the pregnancy, and if it's not, then they just use like fetus or something like that, because they don't want to burden that woman's choice at all. So they understand that using certain language does provoke different emotional reactions, and they're trying to make it just really, really cold as possible. So we have to cut through what they've been doing. And not everyone who's a pro-life advocate does a great job with conveying why they're pro-life, or are good with media and telling stories and other stuff like that. And at the same time, you got big tech trying to censor. I'm sure since I've talked about this topic for so long, there could be even a label at the bottom of this video by now about abortion. Who knows? But they do stuff to censor this topic now, and I'm concerned how much they'll continue to try to censor this topic to protect that industry. But go ahead and check out that video from Emily that I posted, and check out the other videos. On YouTube, I started to make a playlist. There's more that I have posted on YouTube than Facebook, but I had a good time. So I just wanted to continue to put that out there. I said this week I would continue talking about it and make sure that I highlight some of my sponsors who helped me get there. So I'll do that today. I will do that tomorrow, and then we won't continue to have these long intros about it. But I did want to take the time out to thank those people and continue to advocate that you advocate for life. Okay, so before I go into my meme, I do have a meme. It's not a meme, but it is a video, and it's pretty funny. At least I thought it was funny, and it's on topic. I do want to say, if you like what I do here, consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Whatever you can do to support, I very much appreciate it. Costs to stream my website. I'm streaming, everything. I'm streaming like multiple platforms. I'm using StreamYard to be specific, but it costs to do that. It costs to run my website. It costs to use software and different stuff that I use. So if you would like to help with any of that overhead, God bless you. You can go ahead to the website and give a gift, whether it's small or large. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing, and make sure you're hitting all the notification bells, etc. So here's a video. We're going to start with Ilhan Omar. And so I was able to find a video that coordinates with what's going on.
The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those in favor say no. No. It's the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it and the resolution is agreed to. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
My Willow memes.
So I've never used one from My Millo. That's a new one for me, but I wonder what it's like to be that young woman who that if you're not familiar with her the origin of the person screaming no, which I'm sure you've seen the meme somewhere, but that was from Trump's inauguration, which people were literally trying to stop from happening. um when people talk about insurrection, I was there that day, by the way. I left early enough from his speech because I was like, I've been to enough Trump. Once he started like revving up and I knew it was getting toward the end, I was like, I've been to enough rallies, I know where this is going, let's go. Because it was cold, and we were standing for a long time because we got there early. My feet were cold, yet they were cold and numb. And when I was walking, it was like flap flap, like like we drove into Maryland and stayed over in Maryland, and then we drove to the train station, and we took the train in, and then we walked from the train station, which wasn't too far, but we were there for a while, and I was just ready to go. So we did miss the limousine set on fire and the broken windows and other stuff like that, but people were texting you like, are you okay? But the night of the ball, though, there were like Antifa, I don't were they calling themselves Antifa at the time? They were like Antifa type people who were attacking people in line, particularly vulnerable people like older white women, for example, in line. So me and my sisters, there were no men with us. We were ready to like have to duel with these folks if necessary. We just I'm from Pontiac, we call it Yaktown for, I don't even know the reason why, but they're saying Yaktown don't back down. So we were like, oh, if you try to like come at us, we gonna fight back. But they left us alone. I guess we looked too hood for them or something. I don't know. But yeah, people were doing stuff that day. But anyway, that's where that meme is from. And I wonder what it's like to live life as that everlasting meme person. She's got to be recognizable to people. So I don't know what it's like to live your life like that. But yeah, Ilhan Omar ended up getting booted from the Foreign Affairs Committee, which I'm not saying that that committee is not important to her and that she doesn't like being on the committee, but sometimes it seems like people put you in different positions to troll other folks. So her being in this particular one, just seems like a troll. So Fox News is reporting the House voted Thursday to kick Minnesota Democratic Rep. Ilhan Omar off the House Foreign Affairs Committee, a decision that Republicans vowed to take because of Omar's history of anti-Semitic and anti-American remarks. The resolution was approved in a 218 to 211 vote after a heated debate in which Democrats accused Republicans of racism and hypocrisy and claimed that the GOP is only policing Democrats for questionable behavior. Omar and several other Democrats openly accuse Republicans of racism. I am a Muslim, I am an immigrant, and interestingly, from Africa. Is anyone surprised that I am being targeted? What for your behavior, sweetheart? Is anyone surprised that I am somehow deemed unworthy to speak about American foreign policy, or that they see me as a powerful voice that needs to be silenced? So, there's other comments that in this article, but I'm going to go ahead and just play some folks. We had I got Jeffries, I got McCarthy. So let's go ahead and start with the minority speaker, Jeffries the moron.
Now, the other thing that's going to occur today relates to this effort to remove, in a partisan fashion, Representative Ilhan Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee. After House Democrats unanimously voted for Ilhan to continue her service on the Foreign Affairs Committee. A refugee elected to the United States Congress, duly sent back to the House by her constituents in Minnesota. Now, Representative Omar certainly has made mistakes. She has used anti-Semitic tropes that were clearly and unequivocally condemned by House Democrats.
Were they though?
When it took place 4 years ago.
Were they though? Were they though? So, well, at least they admitted that she used those tropes, which these progressive like anti-Israel folks, they're really aggressive in it. I went to a Haley Stevens debate with Andy Levin, who because they redistrict stuff, they ended up coming head to head, which they didn't need to. I guess Andy Levin could have run in John James, and you know how tight it was. Who knows if he maybe could have won, but he was like the progressive folks were on his side. And at one point there was a question from the audience about donations from like a pro-Israel group, and it didn't even seem like it was much of a question. It was like brought up as a negative because Haley Stevens had received some money. So it was like, ooh, you side with Israel, or people think that you guys side with Israel, or they give you some money sometimes, this group, and like that should disqualify it. Like it was so intense, and like I'm really tripping about this. It was so weird to me. But I guess I didn't he's not my rep, so I guess I didn't follow him that specifically, but I'm like, man, I hope she wins in the prime. I mean, I didn't want her to win anyway. She did end up winning re-election, but I'm like, I hope she at least beat him because he's crazy and his people are crazy. And it's funny because speaking of tropes, there's Black people a little louder watching movies and theaters and other stuff like that, or just more animated during different experiences. And when we go to church and other stuff, like that's not always the case, but that's just the thing, I guess. But there's Black people in the room seeming to be for Haley Stevens, but they had to shush the white folks who were like for Andy Levin, because there was a Republican who came to speak at the beginning, and they were so rude to him, like, and they were like, be respectful, everybody. No, they were yelling out stuff in the audience and booing, and the Black folks had to shush them and be like, that's out of order, you disrespectful. And so I thought it was I got a kick out of watching them shush the progressive white liberals. But he ended up losing the primary, thankfully. Again, I didn't want her to win, but I definitely I didn't want Andy to win for sure. So they at least admit that there were anti-Semitic tropes that she said. I'm going to go ahead and play McCarthy.
American military was equal to Hamas and to Taliban, from a member of the Foreign Affairs. She said Americans only like Israel because it's all about the Benjamins. Mm-hmm. And 3 years later she said, I didn't know there's a trope when it comes to referring to someone who's Jewish with money. She said on 9/11, as a member of Congress, as an individual who's sitting on Foreign Affairs, something happened that day. What does that say to other people around the world? What does that say to somebody else who wants to create another 9/11 America? I'm sorry. It's not right. We were right in our action, and she can serve on other committees. But it puts America in jeopardy, and I'm not going to do that under my watch. And it's fair in the process, unlike them.
No, I argue with that. Makes a good case. I mean, the best thing in her favor is keeping her on there is that you can say, well, she got reelected. She did get reelected, but the body chose to boot her from that committee, that she shouldn't be on that committee. So that's where their body voted. She's still a member of Congress, and she can serve on other committees, but they don't want her on this particular committee. And again, the Democrats, they're like, oh, this is revenge. Revenge for what? because they kicked off other members. Now, here's a little reminder of the incident with the 9/11 comment.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Yeah, they did something that, so people did not take kindly to her downplaying what happened on 9/11, which too many people often do. Even people will, and I've had to reply to, and many people have replied to videos of people saying that January 6th was the equivalent of 9/11, or our generation's 9/11. And I'm not kidding you. But those people thankfully got piled on and trolled by at least, I guess, older users on TikTok. There's people on that app who weren't, born during that time, but that doesn't excuse everyone for being so stupid, though. But saying what she said, people found, indefensible. So there were there's other video clips of her saying different things that McCarthy referenced. So they feel justification for taking her out. The Democrats, took out Marjorie Taylor Greene, who did have wild Jewish space laser stuff that she said. So she was kicked off committees. She hobnobbed her way back, and the Republicans are in power, and now she's sitting on a committee. She got reelected like Omar got elected. And as McCarthy said, she can serve on another committee, but the Democrats are flipping out about it. I'm going to show you AOC. She flipped out about it. And she gave a bit of a performance. Well, you can just watch.
All right, Gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Now, as a fellow New Yorker, I think one of the things that we should talk about here is also one of the disgusting legacies after 9/11 has been the targeting and racism against Muslim Americans throughout the United States of America. And this is an extension of that legacy. Consistency, there is nothing consistent with the Republican Party's continued attack except for the racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this body. I had a member of the Republican caucus threaten my life, and you all and the Republican caucus rewarded him with one of the most prestigious committee assignments in this Congress.
So before we get into her preacher song sermony sort of thing, I just want to point out that if you're someone was going to assassinate her, what she's referring to, and I don't remember if I played it on the stream before, but we did talk about it. So there was a representative, Paul Gosar, she's referring to, and I guess one of his interns or somebody did a video, and it was he was fighting, the left or whatever, and they took the TV show Attack on Titan, which is an insanely popular anime. And you're probably thinking, really, anime? Yes, anime, hugely popular everywhere, I guess. But people love anime, manga. Manga is more outselling American comic books. But Attack on Titan is a huge anime, one of the biggest. It's over now, been for a minute. So at Comic-Con, people still dress up like the characters, like the art, all that different stuff. It's so maybe it's not as heightened as it was when it was fresh and kind of new, but people love Attack on Titan. So they took Attack on Titan and they put his face on different characters fighting the Titans, and AOC put her face on one of the Titans. The Titans are these huge humanoid giant who are naked or whatever, and they attack them and they fight them, etc. My sister watched it. I've never watched Attack on Titan myself. I'm like aware of it. People told me plot lines and stuff, so I'm familiar with it. I've watched a lot of anime in my day, just didn't get around to that one. But that's the story of that. So they took that as, you know, assassination. I mean, it's really, really dramatic. Was it appropriate? No. And it was removed, and he was, you know, the Republicans weren't cool with that. You know, I'm as someone who did comms related stuff, it's amazing to me that something like that got put out on the internet. I think it was taken down before like his people or somebody took it down. But that's what she means by a member tried to or threatened to assassinate her, was that they took the TV show Attack on Titans. They made her a Titan, and he was defending democracy or America, whatever, by fighting the woke folks. And she, as a Titan, was, you know, like killed in it. But it again, I'm not saying it was appropriate. I would have never made that myself, and it would have. I've never gotten past my directors. So every time I made something, and before it could go like out, whether it was an email, whether it was a graphic that I made or a video that I made, if it was like just like a picture somewhere, that was fine. But I wasn't really behind that. I only did that when like the digital director was on vacation, so I didn't really post anything myself, but I would make the content. And so when I would make something and it would go to my director, the comms director, and she would approve it, and then I'd have to send it to all the other directors, and like the political director, the finance director, the executive director, who's you know, over everything, the person who represented Rana, who was the chair at the time, and then, you know, and so they all had to sign off before anything could go out. So it blew my mind when I saw something like that out there. So I don't know if you can find it. I'm sure you can find screenshots, because I saw a screenshot of it today because I kind of didn't remember, and then I was like, oh yeah. It's amazing in a terrible sort of way that all of that kind of exploded. But that's what she means by someone tried to assassinate. So let's get into her sing-songy preaching kind of thing.
Tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of anti-Semitic remarks when you have a member of the Republican caucus who has talked about Jewish space lasers and an entire amount of tropes, and also elevated her to some of the highest committee assignments in this body. This is about targeting women of color in the United States of America. Don't tell me, because I didn't get a single apology.
Time has expired.
When my life was threatened. Thank you.
Chateau. Like, people are like, oh, you want to be like black preacher so bad there in that clip. Yeah, that. And then the person who I saw this was a influencer who retweeted, said she wants to be like a Southern kind of preacher so bad. Then they posted this underneath. This has nothing to do with the topic other than let's laugh at AOC.
I'm proud to be a bartender. I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with working retail, folding clothes for other people to buy. There is nothing wrong with preparing the food that your neighbors will eat. There is nothing wrong with driving the buses that take your family to work. There is nothing wrong with being a working person in the United States of America, and there is everything dignified about it.
I laughed out loud because I heard the guy and he's like, "Come on, girl," you know, because people do that. They go to different crowds and they change up how they address people. Like I think of Hillary Clinton, I ain't no ways tired. So yeah. that was AOC. I think I have Rashida's reaction too. She had to get called off the floor because she was going too long. And so they're just very, very emotional about all this.
Warriors today. The hypocrisy is obvious to the American people. You are showing who you all are, really.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Omar will not be silenced.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Congressman Omar,
The gentlewoman's
so sorry,
time has
sis,
expired.
that our country is failing you today through this chamber. You belong
The gentlewoman is no longer recognized, and the gentleman.
Yeah, very emotional there. One time, Rashida was saying some crazy stuff on TV, and my mom was like, "Well, at least she ain't from here." I'm like, "Mom." She's from Michigan. She's like, "No." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, she's from Michigan. She is not my rep. Haley Stevens is actually my rep, but who I talked about earlier. So yeah, Dems are upset about it, flipping out about it. Again, Republicans warned them, which kicking the different people off the committees up, that really didn't happen. They said it's sort of a new precedent, and now they're upset because it's come to bite them in the butt. So, when people play these games, they have to remember you're not going to always be the one in power. You're just not. So when you try to do something like Harry Reid with the filibuster, and McConnell's just like, one day this is going to come around back at you. So then they changed the filibuster stuff for judicial appointments, and so Trump was able to get a lot of people through. Unfortunately, Biden's getting a lot of people through, and there's now I'm not saying it wasn't worth it, because he did get we did change the landscape of the Supreme Court, thankfully, and we got stuff like Roe v. Wade overturned, and some other stuff that shot down Biden's crazy tyrannical garbage. So I'm glad that Trump was able to do what he did, but there are there's a cost to all this stuff. But we'll talk another day about some of the crazy folks that are up to bat for appointments. One person worked for the Southern Poverty Law Center, so got a lot of crazy stuff that they've said and come against conservatives, and it just won't be good. And there's other folks too, which we talked a little bit. I don't know if it was early this week or last week, but yeah, that's another consequence of losing, unfortunately, and not having control of the Senate. But they were warned. Someone asked me about the two-party system and how I feel about. People complain about it all the time, but I think how we're kind of just set up. If we did have another party that kind of rose up, one of the major two would probably just become a minority party again. And then, that's what happens with the Whigs. You had the Whigs and you had the Democrats, and then the Republican Party came up, and they were the small party, obscure party, and then they ended up becoming a major party as the Whigs, kind of withered away. So it's not perfect because there's so many people discontent with both of them, even like staunch members in them. Like, I'm upset about a lot of things with the Republican Party, frankly, but I'm out of the two, I am an R. So hope I answered that question. Okay, let's move on about Hunter Biden. So Hunter Biden, of course, the laptop story was huge in 2020. It was widely suppressed. As a matter of fact, someone found this gem of a post from Glenn Kessler, who is the fact checker of the Washington Post. So this is from that era, and he said, in his final weeks of campaigning, Trump repeatedly praised the New York Post for publishing the laptop stuff. Give it up, Mr. President, for your sake and the nation's. And of course, the laptop was true. The stuff on it was true. Which, by the way, and I've said this many times, there are people confirming things on it. Like there were different emails. Like there was one with Frank Lutz, for example. So somebody called out Frank Lutz, and then he like explained the email. I'm like, didn't he just like confirm that the email? Okay, so it's real, right? So I mean, and that didn't mean that everything on there was real, but the Biden White House, they would play games about how they would deny stuff, and they never really would. At least to how when I from my observation, they didn't really come out try to even come out hard and say that no, this stuff isn't it. Now we know that the FBI like had access to this stuff, and they were playing games. They were working to suppress it as far as the big tech route, telling Twitter and other and Facebook like, oh, there's going to be some misinformation out there, so just be on alert. So they went ahead and suppressed the laptop. And of course, you have people like Sam Harris who still doesn't care, and they say, well, Hunter Biden could have had dead kids in his basement and he wouldn't have cared, which is insane. And people who act like the story doesn't matter because it's Hunter Biden and doesn't involve Joe Biden, but of course they're involved with each other, especially how their business dealings intertwined. There was times they like shared bank accounts, and Biden actually accidentally paid for like a hooker, but one of his girls, which by the way, there was a story that came out the other day, I heard Ben Shapiro talking about on his show, and Daily Mail covered the story, but he threatened to like withhold pay from someone if they didn't do like sexual actions with him. So he's just a disgusting human being all the way around. Hunter Biden, he's got issues. Joe has issues, but they do have shady business dealings. And Trump even had like their business partner who came out and explained like the big guy is Joe, and they just didn't care. They didn't care, and they tried to suppress the story as much as possible because they knew it wasn't a nothing burger. They knew that it was substantial, and that there was a lot of stuff to look into as far as Hunter and Joe and how they're intertwined, and what kind of it's very obvious that Hunter was getting deals and other things because of his name. So the big questions are, what are they expecting access to, and how people try to buy influence. So the question is, how are they meeting the end of the bargain, But those aren't things that the Democrats wanted to think about, that the media who carries water for them wanted to discuss. They just wanted Trump out by any means necessary. And by gosh, they accomplished what they wanted, including suppressing this very true story. So Hunter Biden is now on the move. And so he's going on offense as far as this whole ordeal goes. And he wants to go after the people who have put out the information as far as Hunter's laptop. So I think that's pretty bold, because, he left the laptop as one excuse that Twitter came up with for limiting the access to the story. And New York Post is because they said it was hacked materials. And of course it wasn't hacked materials. He left the laptop at a shop. And for folks who at first thought it was a fishy story, I don't blame you, because I'm like, that sounds what? Like Rudy Giuliani just happened to get a hold of this laptop that's Hunter Biden. I'm like, the story sounds wild. But once you remember that Hunter Biden is a crackhead, it all starts to make sense, It's just like crackhead behavior, I guess. And so and it's not even the first laptop that's of his. Well, I don't know if it's not the first laptop. I think there's like at least 3 that have been not in his possession anymore, from how he mishandled stuff. But he left it there. He gained access to it, the store owner, and he sent it to the FBI. So the FBI, they had the copy, but he didn't hear from them, so he sent it to Rudy Giuliani because he thought there was some stuff on there that should have been known to the public. But as they're going after the folks who decided to disseminate the information, they're still denying that the laptop was his. So there's a letter These letters do not confirm Mac Isaac's or others' version of a so-called laptop. They address their conduct of seeking, manipulating, and disseminating what they allege to be Mr. Biden's personal data, wherever they claim to have gotten it. So it's not ours, but we want you to get in trouble for it. We're not saying it's ours, but since you thought it was ours, we just want you to get in trouble. Like, bro, we know it's yours. Like, you banging a chick where there's a poor Squirtle in the background watching in distress. Like, we know it's yours. We know it's yours. Just be honest about it, and let's just move on. Let's just move on. There's too much on it that's been confirmed. There's, just move on. It's yours. You left it. You signed for it. You left it in the laptop shop. We live in a crazy world that something like that happened, and you would think that'd be the game changer that would change everything, the biggest, October surprise ever. And then they just suppress the crap out of it. It's the craziest universe. I guess there's no other one, but man, the fact that they think that they can, I don't know if they're just stalling with this, biding time because he knows he's in a lot of trouble as far as what, I don't know, they found or conducted during their investigation. But to keep denying that it's his laptop is just wild. And it also kind of reminds me of the Ashley Biden diary, which I wasn't at first kind of paying any mind. I heard people kind of talking about and alleging some stuff that was on it, which there's some very personal and some grotesque things in there. But I'm like, I don't know, that sound, sometimes you hear things and you're like, that sounds a little too weird to be true. Like, I don't know about that. And then James O'Keefe, like, someone tried to sell it to him, right? And then they couldn't like verify stuff in it. And so they didn't end up like posting anywhere, but the FBI ended up like going and raiding and getting phones and other stuff because they got the diary. And they ended up like prosecuting people who like had it. And they claim that she had left it behind. I'm like, how often do people do that? But once they decided that they needed the diary, which is like, why, since when do people go and raid people for diaries? But I mean, I could understand, the proximity of the president, but it's just, I understand it was still a little shady. But once they did that, I'm like, okay, this thing's got to be legit though. Because I had doubts about it before. I'm like, it sounds a little too weird. But once you're like raiding O'Keefe and stuff, I'm like, okay, there's something there to this. Because you could have just let it die in suspicion land. But do you go and raid Project Veritas, founder guy, over a fake diary that he did not publish because he couldn't verify it? Thanks for you doing the job for us. I don't think you just want to punish people for fake stuff out there, maybe you do. I mean, they did the whole misinformation thing, but they really were tackling, information that they didn't like. So maybe you can make that argument, but I think the more likely one is it was true and they want to punish people for trying to put it out there. I do also think they wanted access to O'Keefe's contacts and his donors. I think that's another big reason why they decided to go after him too. But it's just wild to me. Just fess up, own up to it. Anyway, let's move on. So Sarah Michelle Gellar, who many of you know as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that's her by far the most famous thing that she's done, but that was many moons ago. So she's got a new show out, I believe it's called The Wolf Pack, and she's, starring in it. And so she's also, I believe, the executive producer, and she's got her hands into it. So she's back in the creative market and she has control over it. So she was doing like some press for it, and she did a long article or interview with the Guardian, and people started reporting on what Sarah Michelle Gellar was saying, which she mentioned that, well, she talked about a lot of different things, and mostly primarily, getting back in the saddle as far as acting, but she talked about Marvel movies, and it was brought up that the audience doesn't seem to like or will accept, like, they're so hard when it comes to like the female led superhero movies, and she didn't think that was right. And because they have like the male superhero in their head. And how many like articles or I saw people talking about it, I thought it was like kind of more than that, but that was like the gist of the comment from what I could find in the whole entire like article. There were some other interesting things in the article though, and I'll get to that later. But as far as that goes, I think people had a reaction to what she said is because she's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She had a very successful TV show where she was a female lead. She was a star, and it was like pushed by females. I mean, the Slayer line, they brought in other Slayers. It ended with having like every potential just become a Slayer. So, it was a huge success. There were other female-led action shows that people liked during that time. I've watched many shows with female, action leads, and movies with female action leads. But when it comes to the Marvel movies, there's ones that people just don't like because they just don't like the films. When it came to like Black Widow, and I stopped watching Marvel at that point in time, so I haven't seen the Black Widow movie, but a lot of people didn't like it overall. I don't hear awful terrible things about it. Like some people don't love the story, or they definitely didn't love some of the special effects, but they mostly dislike what they did to the male character Taskmaster, spoiler alert, who they gender swapped. I haven't had a TikTok that went viral because I had the song "Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better. I can do anything better than you." And I showed a picture of the female Taskmaster, and then I showed a picture of the stunt double, and it was a man, and it was like, "No, you can't." And so it was just so quick, and I filmed it really quickly before I like had brunch. I was in the parking lot of this brunch place that we really like. We were having brunch with a pastor who came into town. I'm like, I'm gonna do this TikTok real quick. And it blew up. It just really blew up. Now, I think people were mad because at that point the movie had been out for like a week, and only about a week or so. And I did spoil the reveal. And I'm like, y'all see stuff so quick that, sorry. but most people were mad about Taskmaster, especially if they're familiar with comic books, because he's like a wise cracking sort of person as well, and he was this mute female, but I mean they had I guess had to work for the reveal or whatever, but it was, people didn't like how they treated their male character, and some people didn't even mind the gender swap. There's a lot of people in my comments who said they didn't mind the gender swap so much, but they just didn't like how they butchered the character. So those were the concerns that people had with that movie. A lot of people really liked WandaVision. I did watch WandaVision. But as far as like her taking over Doctor Strange's film, that's literally what happened. Like they took over Doctor Strange's film. As in, they talked about Wanda getting a separate film, and then they just decided to make her the villain in the Doctor Strange movie. It's like Doctor Strange, mom. Multiverse of Madness, like the acronym is mom. Like they just took it over. It was all about how she wanted her kids back. Screw her husband or the one she loved and married in her little sitcom. It was about she just wanted her 2 kids. So totally took over his film. But still supposed to be a man-led action film, but she was the villain of it. So And since she was the villain, like, are people not supposed to like to not like her as she's like ripping apart, you know, Mr. Fantastic and snap the neck of Charles Xavier? Like, so, you know, are people just supposed to be like, oh, girl, slay, you know, as they're watching Mr. Fantastic turn into spaghetti? I don't think so. What else? People didn't like uh She-Hulk. And my oldest sister, my dad would buy her She-Hulk comic books and stuff. And she's like, I just don't see you know, She-Hulk in this. She wasn't fond of it, and there was a lot of dumb stuff in it. But a lot of people didn't like a clip that went super viral was her talking down to Bruce, like, I can control my anger because I've been catcalled, Bruce. And it's like, he's been chased by the government for some time. I just don't think, you know, you need to woman-splain this to him, you know. Which later it proved in the episode that she didn't actually have it under control, but she lost control. However, I don't expect people to hear that feminist rant and clap along like seals. There are other people who clapped along like seals and like, yes, explain the trauma of being a woman in modern today, except. But plenty of people are like, it's not that serious, ma'am. What else? Captain Marvel. You know, that's actually like the big movie. And by the way, Marvel itself apparently doesn't feel like Brie Larson and Captain Marvel herself is big enough to continue on with the franchise as a lead, because she's been downgraded and now it's about multiple Marvels. It's it's the Marvels. So they got the Miss Marvel, the con chick. I've never read her in any of her books or anything, but Kamala Khan, and they have the other Ms. Marvel, who's in a Captain Marvel, where her Monica Rambeau was her mom, and then but in the TV show, I can't remember her name in WandaVision, but she got powers in WandaVision, and so they're gonna, the movie's about them as a trio, I guess, or I don't even know. Maybe the other Captain Marvel who they did put in Doctor Strange might pop in there too. I don't know. So it's not even about Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. It's about all these folks now. I didn't think Captain Marvel was that bad. I thought it was okay. I think some stuff that I saw that got left out in the cutting room floor, good thing they left it out. But overall, I thought it was okay. It wasn't groundbreaking, you know. However, things that I do hear people talk about, especially hardcore fans, and I do have like a ton of comic books. It just didn't really. I didn't like it at the time, but it offended other people more than it offended me. And I can totally understand their offense. Captain Marvel, like the original Captain Marvel, Marvel was his name, was gender swapped and had like a short part that they butchered. So it was a big storyline when Marvel died in the comic books, and of course that's gone, glossed over, not going to be, you know, nothing's going to be done with that apparently, and they just butchered and disrespected the character. So I think one thing that people, and I was talking to my sister earlier about this, that people don't like is about a lot of these female led films, is that instead of like the women just matching the men at their level, they really bring down the men, you know? So I agree with that. Well, I guess I said it, so I agree with it. But yeah, that's just kind of evident that continuously goes on. I mean, if you look at the Thor film, Love and Thunder, like, you know, people were interested in seeing, you know, the God of Thunder get back on track, and it's this goofy love film, you know, where he's just a joke. While there's a God butcher going around, it just totally didn't match. And in the comic books, you know, I just remember my dad talking about it and hating that series because Thor is his favorite character. And about how he's going around calling himself the unworthy, and he just hated it. And I hated what they did to Thor in Endgame more than anything else. I felt like, I understand that every main character was a part of the process of, like, denial, anger, bargaining, and he was, denial, and he was really, really in a dark place, and went through depression and gained a bunch of weight, which, I can understand, but they're trying to do the serious thing with him, but they're also making jokes about cheese whiz in his veins. So so the Marvel humor that they're so addicted to, they're trying to do the super serious thing while making fun of this person who blames, himself for half the universe being gone. So I didn't like it, but there was never like a moment in the film itself where Thor got like a big moment to shine. I mean, Captain America picked up his hammer and he had that great moment. Iron Man got to like snap and save the day, but Thor, like, you didn't even need to put Captain Marvel in that film at all. And just some of the they could have found another way to get Tony back home. But like, as far as like some of the big things that she did, they could have had Thor do, taking out the monsters and etc. So I never felt like they had a chance to really have him shine again. Like, it's fine if you're going to tear somebody down, but they never really had a chance for him to really to bring him back up. So I hated the most what they did to him, and I don't want to get to a big why I hate Endgame video today. I guess I can put it out there eventually. But they're, I don't know, they're not being kind to their male characters. To me, that's not what it feels like. Like, people, they have to, and they bring on the female, and she's more competent. Oh, she's more natural than even they were, even though they've been the superhero for years and they just now got it, I mean, there's a scene when the Hulk uses Jennifer's blood to heal him, and she's like, "Oh, is it because I'm better than you?" And he's like, "No." She's like, "Oh, it was because I'm better than you." And I guess I get they're cousins. But I don't know. I wouldn't talk to my cousin like that. Like, we joke and stuff for sure, but it just seems so shoehorned. And then the writings for a lot of this stuff isn't good. She-Hulk didn't have good writing, and the people who wrote it, they hired people who didn't know how. They did a legal superhero drama with people who didn't even know how to write legal scenes and stuff, and they're writing stuff knowing that they're going to tick off the fans, and that's the part of their plan. And they're like laughing, like, ha, 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 people hate our show, isn't it great? Just like we planned. And I'm like, that's a terrible plan. Like, why don't you just make something good? Why don't you just make something good? So there's a lot of things wrong with the MCU, as it's called, at least by fans who hate it. There's a lot of things that are wrong on that front, but as far as her criticism, as far as the male superhero, people looking to the male superhero and just not giving the female superheroes, like in the Marvel universe, a chance. Are we acting like people don't trash the other films? Like, how many times is like the MCU's Spider-Man be called Iron Man Jr.? And people like the last film, and they said they fixed some things that people were complaining about as far as Spider-Man. I didn't like Homecoming, and I didn't like Far From Home. I didn't like either of those films. I know I'm in a minority. I don't like them. So many people dunk on, they don't like the Thor franchise that much. They liked Ragnarok. But I really like the first Thor, and I didn't hate Dark World. I enjoyed it. People, that's among like people's most hated. They hate that one. So Iron Man 3 is one of the worst films that they've made, in my opinion. And I didn't like Iron Man 2 either. So I don't like Tony Stark, to be frank with you. I don't like Iron Man. The first one is a good film. I've just never been an Iron Man fan. So to think that people just are being particularly mean to the female lead characters, that's just not true. It's just not true. Like the people don't have a lot of love for the Hulk films. That one with Eric Bana was just trash, man. But there was a scene and I started just quoting, like he was talking about his heart racing. He's like and my dad was watching it a couple weeks ago and I just started quoting it. They're like, how do you remember that? Because I haven't seen it for years. I'm like, how could you forget? It was so bad. So yeah, Ang Lee really did not do a good job with that film at all. So people have major complaints about these films led by men. You know, a lot of people really loved the first Captain America film. I thought it was okay. You know, I really preferred you know, the next ones after that. So it's not like people, you know, don't dislike films that are led by men, but some of these films are better than others, and it's okay. It's okay. Like you're gonna say the same like fans who will go out and watch Marvel films and not like Captain Marvel, but the people who liked Wonder Woman, like that they hate women, or that these same people who loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer can't accept a female superhero now because it's Marvel. It just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. On a side note, I do also hate Captain Marvel. I never liked her. I never liked her. One day someone asked me why in a comment section, and then I just started listing things and they were like, "Oh wow, I didn't expect you to actually have a list." I'm like, "No, I actually don't like her." And I'm not talking about movie ones, movie Miss Marvel, which I'm not a fan of her either. I don't like her in the books, and I don't want to get into a big thing about why I don't like her either and go too long. But yeah, people just need to stop blaming sexism on why people hate stuff. Like whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Legend of Korra, or whether it's I saw a huge Naruto TikToker mention that people just don't like Sakura because of sexism. I'm like, that's crazy. Because people like other female characters in, you know, Naruto, people like female characters in Avatar. And I'm not talking about the blue people Avatar. I'm talking about the TV show, beloved TV show. I'm like, people love the female characters, particularly Toph. Somebody likes Katara. I was never too fond of Katara. She's a great bender. I'm never too far. People like Azula. People like, you know, Suki. I mean, people love female characters. Kyoshi in that universe. So to think that people don't like Korra because she's a woman, it's just really crazy. Just really crazy. And same thing with Star Wars. People, the same people who love Princess Leia don't like Rey because they're women, because she's a woman. That's crazy. Or Sokka, like like is it Ahsoka, the Anakin's Padawan? I have not seen anything that she's in. I guess I didn't watch their movie, or I've seen a lot of Star Wars stuff, but just not anything, I guess, with her. But people like her. People love her. She should have. People expected her to die forever ago, and she's still around. She's still around. She's a fan favorite. So people pushing the sexism thing, it's so tired. It's so tired. And I think people were really frustrated with Sarah Michelle Gellar mentioning, even though it was like a really small part of that interview, because ma'am, you were Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And people loved what you did. They supported, you know, you. Now, seeing action films with women who are, you know, 90 pounds soaking wet, you know, punching out, you know, linebackers or something, that doesn't make sense to people. But someone being like supernaturally endowed with some kind of power, with like Buffy, like people can like, okay, well, she has superpowers. So it's a lot easier to buy than something like you know, you watch like a standard action film with no magic or something and a female's leading it. And I'm not saying that females can't do action, because there's, like I said, I've seen action female movies and TV shows that people watch and like. And I did a video about Jennifer Lawrence's comment about females leading action films, and she said I was the first or something. And I'm like, that's crazy. But anyway, I don't want to rant too much along about this, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off, because I could, I guess I could talk about this all day, but we'll say we're done with that. So God bless you guys for watching. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos. Like go back and watch that Jennifer Lawrence video I just referenced, and you know, I have a couple pop culture stuff in it. Like I do have a video on why I stopped watching Star Wars, where how I fell out of love with that. So you guys can go back and watch different other content. Please make sure that you check out some of my March for Life and Students for Life Summit content that I have on YouTube. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It costs a stream. We're on my website, all that good stuff. So if you can support, I very much appreciate it. Also, please check out my book, Of Course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. It is available for pre-order on paperback. I'm sorry, not paperback, on ebook. The paperback will be available soon, so I'll let you guys know. So please go on the website and just sign up for that. Also, I do have a ton of other books that I have that are out that are published. I have 15 books that are published. That's pictured with me in all of them. And so I do have a historical fiction fantasy that takes place in the Civil War. I mentioned this at the top of the hour. So if something like that, you know, tickles your fancy, it is an interesting book. I'm sure that you will enjoy it. So we talked about sci-fi and stuff. Like imagine like X-Men, but in like Civil War era kind of time. So you can get that on paperback, you can get that on ebook, or if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can also get it on there too. So God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.